Hello and welcome to part 6 of Discover Drawing with Senya Brendan here from the Isle of Arran in Scotland. So today I'm going to try and keep this quite short for you. The weather's getting really nice and also because I'm experiencing some problems uploading the videos to YouTube, I think if I can keep them shorter then that would be helpful. So today we're going to have a look at some blind contour drawings and how we can use these to change around the way that we look at objects that we're trying to draw. If you remember, I was telling you that most of us, without any skills training, would spend about 90% of our time looking at the piece of paper that we're drawing on and only 10% looking at the object in front of us, or the scene or the landscape or whatever it is. And what we need to do is try and turn that around. And there's various things you can do to retrain your brain to see better. And actually it's a lovely thing to do because you tend to find that as you do more and more of this, you start to see a lot more. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if I hold this up to you, have you any idea what that is? Any idea at all? It's a very odd shape, isn't it? And our left brain, our logical left brain, looks at it and it's trying, and see if you can feel this happening inside your head. Your left brain is trying to make sense of what that is. And if you've looked at the title of this workshop, then you possibly might know, but otherwise, I don't think you would have any idea what that is. If, however, I show you, let's see if I can, that's what it is. It's my hand. I drew around it. I put my hand into a position like I was holding something and I drew around the outline of my hand. But very, very difficult to tell what it is. If, however, I showed you that, I don't think any of us would have a problem with what it is. And that shows you why our logical left brain likes these symbolic pictures, because they make sense. And it's why we draw shoes from the side, people's heads from the front face on, how we draw flowers face on with the petals sticking out. It's because it's easily recognizable and therefore it's a good symbol to have. Whereas, you know, wash your hands, that would be ridiculous. Nobody would have a clue what that was. So, which is one of the things I find strange as well, is if we go back to that one, look at that. How many of us walk around with our hands like this? It's a very unnatural position for your hands, so it serves a purpose as a symbol. So one thing you might like to do is just to put your hand in a position, an unusual position, and have a go at sketching it. Now I did this, here's one I found in my folder, and this one was in 2013, and it says I took 45 minutes, so it's quite a long time, and I sat and sketched my hand there and the shirt that I was wearing as well. And I was at the time really quite pleased, and I took my time to identify highlights and shadows, and I looked at negative spaces, see the little V shape in there. I'd learned about negative spaces. I saw this lovely curve here. I really slowed up as I was drawing and made every tiny little bump and lump count. I looked at my nails and thought, you know, I could see a dark shadow here, so I just did a little dark, but you can see my shadows get darker the closer they are. Also, when one thing touches another, you have a slightly darker line. And so lots of things that we've been talking about are in there. But here's one I did 2 years later after more instruction, and can you see the difference? And again, this negative space in here was a really good way to start. Again, we've got this V shape, but this time I used the graphite ground, so I was able to get this middle tone, and then I could add darker bits, rub out the highlights as I showed you, and then finally at the end I rubbed as much of the ground out as I could, so it left a sort of faint shadow. And to me, you know, that was 45 minutes. And that one, it doesn't say how long I took, but it was probably a good couple of hours to produce a drawing like that. But it really made me look at my hand really intently. Now that's all very easy to say. Off you go, draw your hand, but that doesn't really help you get started. So like anything else, let's think about warming up. And the first thing that you could do is draw a left brain hand, because that gives you a starting point. Watch how quickly we can do that, and you can do this along with me if you like. So take a piece of paper and a pencil, and just without looking at anything and just using your left brain, draw a quick hand. I'm drawing mine now. And think about what your brain's doing while you're doing this. Think about how it's trying to make you go quickly. Think about what you've done. Now, I have got my picture symbol of a hand here. There we go. And we tend to, as we get older, we add more details. So you might say, well, I just want to make sure people really know it's a hand. And the wrist, not so sure. So sometimes, you know, we'll put on a watch. Although not as many people wear watches nowadays with our phones having times on. Sometimes you put little marks for the knuckles. Okay, you all get the idea. Okay, so that would be a really quick left brain hand. If I show you these two side by side, okay, these are obviously, they're both by me, both by the same artist. And yet, if I looked at that, I would think to myself, I can't draw. You know, it doesn't look, and this is what happens when we get to about ages 8 to 12. We start to look at our drawings and you know, previously we might have been really happy with that, but as you get older, you start looking at it, and we go through what's called the crisis period, which is about ages 8 to 12, where we start to really criticize our own drawings, and we look at something like this and we go, actually, here's my hand. This does not look like this. And so we come to the conclusion that we can't draw, and we just give up. But yes, you can. You just need to know how. So a good way to get started is to do something we call a blind contour drawing. And that's where you do not look at the page you're drawing on at all. And it gets you away from focusing on your picture and starts to get you really looking at the thing that you're drawing. So I'll see if I can show you quickly how to do it. And basically, if you tilt yourself away, I'm just trying to see how I can do this here, but basically put your hand in a position that you like. I mean, I had one like that. You might have a fist. You might just randomly go, ooh, like that, or you might have a claw this way round, that way round, whatever you like, okay? So put your hand, and again, a white background can help you see it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is look at the hand up here, but I'm going to draw here. So watch, I'm looking at the hand whilst I'm drawing, and you'll see, if I can put this so you can see it, you can see this will be quite a mess and bits will cross over other bits. Doesn't matter, it's not about this, it's about warming up to the idea of really looking. So I'm going to make a start. I think probably, it doesn't really matter, but I might start up here on this thumb. So here I go. So I've got a little dark bit there, and it comes, and there's actually a tiny little curve there, and a little dark bit there. That comes up, and there's actually a sort of slight curve. My nails aren't very long. And then there's a little bit of the pad of my thumb showing, and then this bit comes down here like this. But then I'm going back up to this bit here, and I've actually got three. Oh, it's like the mark of Zorro on my thumb. And then I've got a little bit comes under here. And then I'm back down the side here, and I've got quite a lot of wrinkles down this bit here. So I've got wrinkle, another one, and then I'm coming down, and there's actually a shaded bit there. Remember, identify dark bits and light bits. And then going back up to here, I've actually got, it's like a dark triangle. So, and then in that triangle, there's one dark line. Then there's a slightly paler, wrinkly line there. And then this bit comes up here, and there's a bit there. And then this bit goes up here. And see how slowly I'm going, tracking, and my eye is following the line of this finger. And I'm actually going like this, up, and then it raises up a tiny bit and round, and then there's a really smooth bit there and a tiny little bit that comes round. That's the pad of my finger. So then there's a bit comes down here and dark. Oh, and what's interesting is this whole bit here is quite dark, but then there's a little bit there that goes like this, then comes up and then a little sticky out bit there, and it goes down here, a little V shape there, little V shape there, down, down, and I've just come down this bit here. Now, one thing before I show you what I've done, did you notice how I went quite quiet? I actually found it really difficult to keep talking to you, because what was happening was, rather than being in this left brain symbol mode, I'd switched into a right brain mode where I was being really concentrating on what exactly was in front of me, and I was looking and I was observing and I was thinking about all the spatial bits and the shapes, and that sends you into the right brain. And language and talking are right brain activities. So when you're in that lovely creative, our left brain activities are talking, but when you're in that right hand mode, you tend to go very, very quiet, and you tend not to communicate so much. And so quite often when I'm teaching children, it's really important that you're quiet while you're drawing, and that you really absorb yourself in the drawing. That's you in your right brain state. And what I used to say to the children when I was teaching was, if you chat, that lifts you instantly out of the right place in your brain and takes you back into that dominant left mode. So just really focus, really concentrate. And actually, once you get into it, it happens naturally. You know, if you play the video back, you'll see the point where I started to go quite quiet, and I had to really focus to talk while I was doing it. Here's my wonderful hand. Look at that. It's not a masterpiece by any means, but what that is, that shows you my understanding, and I'm learning about my hand. I'm starting to see where the little dips are, and the wrinkles and the dark bits and the light bits, and how you get the tiny protrusion of your fingernail. And all our hands are different. So rather than, I mean, that could be anybody's hand, anywhere, really. But this is absolutely my hand. And that's the difference between a left brain drawing and a more artistic drawing. This will get you on the road to doing that. So do some blind contour drawings of your hand. Then it's frustrating because you can't see. And I think I peeked. If you play the video back, I think I peeked once, maybe twice at my page. That's because I was trying to do an adjusted contour drawing, which is the next step. Your left brain will try and make you look at the piece of paper. Override it. This is what you have to learn how to do to draw well. So learn to override that left brain that's trying to get you to look at your paper. We know what a hand looks like. Hurry up and get on with it. Tick, job done. What's my next task? That's your left brain. And if you feel frustrated doing it like this and not looking at your paper, that frustration is the battle going on in your head with your left brain trying to take over the task. Once it realizes it can't, and that's probably the point where I went quite quiet, once it realizes it can't take over the task, it just backs off and leaves you alone. And then you can enjoy yourself in that quiet right brain mode so that you can produce a much more detailed artistic drawing. Next step, after you've done several blind contour drawings, maybe 2 or 3 with your hand in different positions, and then by then you might have an understanding which position you most enjoyed to have your hand in. Choose your position that you want to draw your final hand in, and then the adjusted contour drawing is exactly the same. So don't look, draw a tiny bit, but this time you're allowed to look and just check that your pencil's in the right place. And also, if you want to lift your pencil off and go to a different bit, you can glance back and check where it is, so that unlike the last one I did, all the bits would join up. Be very careful though, because as soon as you look away from your hand to your paper, your left brain goes, oh, phew, that makes more sense. And it's really tempting just to do tiny wee glance and then another 5 or 10 minutes drawing, tiny glance, and then you roll back to front again. So it's an adjusted contour drawing is like a blind contour drawing with a tiny peak and straight back up to your hand. Okay, so what you don't want is drawing away, blind, and then looking down at your page and forgetting to look back up. And I've watched classes of children do this, and I used to have I used to walk around and I just used to tap them on the shoulder. and then they realised that they'd gone into this just looking at their paper, and they're like, oh yeah. And so the room would be really quiet, we'd all be concentrating, and if I saw somebody that had gone to focus back on their paper, I just used to tap them, go left brain, right brain. Okay, so just be aware of that. And that's all I'm going to say today. Have a practice. If you want, like I did for this one, to prepare a ground for your final one, and then you can do highlights and shadows, rubbing out and using your 6B pencil for the darker areas. But go really slowly, take your time. Your left brain rushes you round all these. You know, it just goes like this all the way around. Whereas if you can really go slowly with your pencil marks and really concentrate when it dips in, okay? And then it's got like a little dark bit here. And where this thumb is touching this finger, there'll be a dark shadow or a slightly darker line. Notice on your fingernails how some edges are dark and some are light. So rub your pencil line out on the lighter areas and take your darkest 4B or 6B pencil in the darker areas. And that will start to give you some three-dimensional qualities to your work as well. So I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.